Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and today I have a lovely guest. Her name is Patty, and she is my wife. And today, what this is going to be, folks, is we're going to record. This video is of a podcast we do. Every week, me and her, we have this podcast called the Awaken Life Academy, where we talk about...
Awaken Life Podcast.
The Awaken Life... I forgot the name of my own podcast. The Awaken Life Podcast. Where are my notes? And we just thought it'd be kind of cool to share with you because this topic in particular we feel will resonate with a lot of people that are also on my YouTube channel. So we're gonna just in a moment hit play here and just invite you in to our podcast, which will also so happen to be a video as well. Hope you're all doing phenomenal, my friends. Hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you inside.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? And welcome to another episode of the Awaken Life Podcast. My name is Victor, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Patty.
Hey, guys.
And we are going to do the topic of the week is going to be 6 signs that you're actually very close to finally discovering your life purpose, even if the idea of that is starting to frustrate you because there's a growing desire to find it. And oftentimes when that happens, it can seem more distant than ever. We can feel more emotional and incapable of discovering a life purpose than ever. And yet, oftentimes, these are indicators that you are actually very close. And we're going to dive back into our own stories and some of the different, how we related to these different signs, which as you'll see will be different. We have a different relationship with some of these markers. And I think it'll give a lot of you who, my intention for this is those of you who want to discover your calling, your ideal outlet of creative expression, just your role, your place in the world. I want you to know that it is possible and to not give up. And you're probably a lot closer than you think. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Me too. Good. Sign number 1, a growing discontentment with your life, aspects of your life. For me, it was interesting because in the past, I worked very hard. I took kind of a leap of faith and put years of energy and time and effort into building a gym business, as well also a medical marijuana grow operation. These things I started from just ideas in my mind and I brought them into fruition. So it was very puzzling to me when I started to become really depressed about them. I started to become like, you know what? I was like, for a little while I was in denial because I did not want to believe, even though I sensed it deeply, that I was not going to ultimately be happy doing either of these things. It was like, oh my goodness, dude, I put all this time into this. And like a lot of you might have put a lot of time into your life, your careers, your relationships, just aspects of your life. And it's like, oh my goodness, I don't want to admit to myself that I don't want it anymore. In fact, as the days go on, I become more and more and more depressed and unhappy about it. So do you have anything that you can kind of relate with that?
Yeah.
You do good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good. Thank goodness. I know I've talked about this before on the podcast, but when we were living in San Diego, and everything with your online business was starting to really flourish, and I was getting really bored and discontent with like the homeschooling and just the day-to-day tasks of taking care of the kids and cleaning and doing all that stuff. I started to feel like my life was meaningless, and I just was starting to feel really depressed and I don't like to use the word bored, but like I had no joy. I had no joy in anything other than in anything that was strictly for myself. That was just for me. Everything I did was for everyone else, but I didn't have anything for myself, and it made me feel really depressed and really sad about that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, at the time we were living in an RV. I was building up my online business, my YouTube channel and such. And I think we talked about it before. And I always say, your purpose is not like one thing. It's just like your next, it's like just living your purpose is like being on your path, the path you came to walk. And for a while, your purpose was a kid.
Right. And it changed, exactly. It changes as you grow and change through this journey. So, at one point, it was very meaningful and very powerful for me to find myself in a different way after each kid. And I got really passionate about being a mom and growing and
in the homeschooling, I remember, right?
Exactly. But as time went on, I realized like this there's more to me than just this. And not that being a mom isn't powerful. Being a parent is an incredibly powerful and purposeful job. But for me, it started to feel like there was more to my purpose.
Yes. And that's the beauty. It's no fun to get into a funk and get depressed and be like, wow, suddenly I'm just not satisfied on like a deep level, and I know there's something missing. But that compels you to say, well, what else is there?
Right.
What else could I be doing? And that creates those intentions to help you discover that next thing that will complete you. So it's a blessing, really. Otherwise, we would just be stagnant and live like mediocre lives, not truly fulfilled.
Right. Yeah. I was speaking with a friend of mine, and I'm not sure if this really relates, but it just popped in my head, and it made me smile a little bit. It's if you always stay the same, there's no excitement in that. So that's why change is like, ooh, it can be scary, but it's fun, because there's new and exciting things to look forward to.
Isn't it funny how at least me, I seek stability. I want to get on top of the mountain, hang up a hammock, and never have to have any other responsibilities ever again in my life. But then we get depressed. Mm-hmm. We get bored.
Once you get there, then you're like, okay, it's time to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
maybe you need to go a little higher on that mountain.
Exactly, or something. There's a new mountain that piques your interest, but
or just moving straight on flat ground.
Yeah. We could take this analogy all over the place, but I think we've nailed sign number 1. Would you agree?
I agree.
All right. Number 2. This is kind of a positive one. Getting help. Are you gonna make it?
I don't know.
She gets these laughing spells.
Okay, I'm good. I'm
kidding. All right. So number 2, just kidding, is getting help or signs of confirmation and assistance from the universe. Let's see. Yeah, I remember during this time when my gym was starting to it was also failing. The businesses that were making me discontent were also not doing very well.
Right, they flourished for a while, and you were doing really well, and then all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, it was like clients were dropping off, and the plants started getting stuff, and
But it was a dark time because not only were these my income structure, my bread and butter starting to sort of like dwindle. I knew there was a decreasing lack of motivation to keep them going. And anyway, it was a really precarious time in our life because we had Sebastian. We just had our 3rd child, and I thought, wow, this couldn't have come at a worse time. But ironically, when you start to even entertain the fact that you're not satisfied and open up to the possibility that there may be something more out there for you, you start getting signs and confirmation. And that was during that time. In fact, I remember reading that book at the hospital after we had Sebastian, our 3rd child.
Did you say what book it was?
I'm going to tell him, yeah. What book, Victor? Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Very powerful book. It's all about this. It's all about seizing the day, finding your purpose, and how to do it. It's a masterpiece. And it was so spot on, so relevant, so hopeful, exactly what I needed in that time to get me to kind of let's do this in spite of the resistance. And you had a couple things.
I did, right? Yes. So the first thing was you got invited to go to Rhythmia. And
real quick, they might not know what that is.
Oh, Rhythmia, what is it? Spiritual Advancement Center?
Yeah, it's like a place where you go.
It's a retreat center for plant medicine.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got invited to go to Rhythmia, and you weren't going to go. And just automatically, my first response was like, well, why wouldn't you go? Like, and then immediately after I convinced him that he needed to go, I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I should have just shut my mouth. But Anyway, so you went, and that introduced you to the person that I sat with my first ayahuasca ceremony, which changed my life completely.
Yes.
And then the second thing was, there was a guy at the gym who he worked there, and I talked with him a couple of times, and I was always reading books, and he asked me what book I was reading, and it was a book about ayahuasca shamanism, and so we got to talking, and like a week later he comes in and he's like, I've got a book for you. He gave me this book, and when he gave me this book, I had the thought like, oh, you're never going to see him again, and I still to this day have not seen him, and I still have the book that he lent me to read. So yeah, and the book was very powerful for me, actually.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, little ironies like that will happen that aren't really ironies at all. It's just the universe supporting you, because when you really start to entertain your purpose, it's almost like the universe knows this is not easy for this person, this ego, this character to follow this path into the unknown. So I'm going to hook them up with little books, little seeds of confirmation that'll be individual to every person, but I've had them, you've had them, I've seen that across the board.
I actually just thought of another one that I had. Can I share that?
No, I don't think so. There's not enough time. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I started getting the inkling that I wanted to go to Peru, and every time I would turn on like the TV, like I would put on the Travel Channel, and it was bizarre foods, and he just happened to be in Peru,
Yes.
And then another time I was watching it, and it was Anthony Bourdain, and he was in Peru. And so I kept being like, okay, I kept getting like confirmation from outside sources of like, you know, go to Peru, go to Peru, go to Peru. So and I just said, I think I really need to go to Peru, babe. And he was like, well, okay. I guess you gotta go.
You let me go to Costa Rica, so it's your turn.
Yeah, my turn.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. So just be on the lookout for those, and know that's just the universe sort of saying it's okay, go for it. It's going to work out for you.
Yeah.
Number 3 is complications with situations that conflict with your emerging life purpose. So when you start to get on this path or fall on this path to an extent, then it'll start, your consciousness will shed light onto areas of your life that don't resonate with where you're headed. And there's a story that came to mind last night when I was plotting this out with Patty. It was when I really knew. It was when I knew for a fact it was time to let go of my grow operation, which was a big financial support system for me. Again, it was hard to let go because I put all this time into it. But so anyway, I rolled up to our big building, and we were trimming. If you guys don't know, it takes a long freaking time to trim marijuana, and we had many pounds of it, and they didn't want to invest in a trimmer. And I was like, man, I knew there'd be a week of like 10-hour days straight, and I was like, and this was in conjunction with this growing discontentment anyway. It was a mess. Me and my partner weren't really getting along, and we had different ideas about what we should be doing, and there was just all this stress, and I came into this long week ahead of trimming. And then one of the synchronicities I've had throughout my many other times when I used to grow weed was water spilling randomly. And we were sitting there trimming, and all of a sudden, of course, someone was filling up a big 50-gallon drum and forgot the hoses in there. And water just started coming from under the door from our grow room, and it would have taken hours to clean up. Anyway, it was not just one thing. It was just like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like negative manifestations that for me held a resonance and had a message, carried a message like, Victor, you don't want this. You don't like this. I know you built it. I know you put all this time into it. I know you got all these ties, but you don't want to be here. And we're going to keep making your life suck more and more and more until you finally admit that to yourself. But that was enough. At that point, I was like, I knew I was done. And you have a totally different... Do you have a different perspective on this?
Yeah. I didn't really quite experience that because I didn't have anything to let go of. Like, the thing that I was doing is something that I still do, like, taking care of everybody. And like, the house and things like that. So and that all still needs to get done. So for me, there was nothing that I had to like release and let go of because I wasn't holding on to anything.
Yeah.
But one thing that did start happening was it was really challenging to get Maya motivated to do her schoolwork. And she started saying like, oh, I want to go to a school. I want to go to a school. And then, you know, we ended up like looking into that, and we're like, okay, she's got to go to a school. So I guess it was like just getting things aligned to where we could put her in a school. So I would, and Lucas as well. So I would have a little bit more free time. But as far as like letting anything go, there wasn't any challenge in that for me.
That's because, truth be told, she's much better at navigating her awakening than I am, and that's the truth. It's
just I don't have any expectation of how things need to be, so there's no attachment to that for me.
Yeah, no, that's the good point. The reason I had those sort of negative manifestations with both the gym and grow and other areas of my life was because I was clinging. My mind would not relax about it.
Yeah, and because that was like our financial it was our like basically how we made our money. So it didn't make logical sense. So it was very challenging for you to wrap your mind around like letting go of our income.
Right. That was my struggle.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Certain things are easier to let go of than others, obviously. But the universe, again, this is another form of support. It's just it's a manifestation of the energetic distance between your growing frequency and where you're going versus where your mind thinks you need to be. It'll start to cause quote unquote problems, but really they're just signposts to say, like for me, to get you to admit you don't want this. You don't want it. So admit that. And then the universe can come in and say, okay, well, this is what you do want. This is going to be way better, man. Right?
Yeah.
But if you can be like relax about it, like Patty, it doesn't have to turn into water spills and stuff like that. She can just sort of sense and she kind of adapts pretty quickly. So some of you might not experience as much stress as I did. Yeah. Number 4 is oftentimes there are heavy emotions up at the surface that need to get out of the way for you to really be the person you're going to ultimately become. And I'll give an example, a recent example. This will also sort of go in alignment with my philosophy on life purpose, that there is not one purpose. It's just like the next step of your path and your evolution that's truly resonant with you. Well, I have a next step and a next path. I'm going to be doing retreats, quite a lot of them, in different destinations and stuff. And it's on one hand, I'm very excited about it, but it's also very scary. It's something that I feel inspired to do. It's going into the unknown that excites me and resonates, but it scares me. And therefore, it's kicking up all sorts of heavy emotions that need to be out of the way for me to do this new thing successfully. For example, and I've been sharing about this, shyness. It's like, wow, he's shy. I'm actually quite shy. I'm not very social. So I've been in a lot of different social situations recently that have really brought light to the fact that, Victor, if you're gonna be doing retreats, man, you gotta kind of open up and let some of your personality out around other people other than just this camera. But again, they're heavy emotions of doubt, emotions of like social anxiety, all that kind of stuff. But I don't care because I've been through this process before. I know what it is, and it's like, oh, thank goodness. It's about time. I'd love to rid myself of this because at the core, I like people. I like to communicate with people. And in the right elements, it's just such a joyful thing. I just have these conditioned emotional responses that are up at the surface recently. And I've sort of gotten through a lot of them recently. But this can make people really doubt themselves. Like, well, I'd love to do retreats, but man, I'm not good around people. It's not going to work. Look how I feel now. It's okay. It's what's coming is going. It's coming out to be released.
Yeah.
Right? You've had this quite a bit. A little bit?
Yeah. I just thought, I was thinking, I met someone this weekend and he mentioned, he's like, he's not good at speaking in front of people, but he did like a great job speaking in front of a group of people. And I said, you're telling yourself that story, and that's just not true. You're really good at speaking in front of people. But anyway, that's a little tangent, but it just was a thought. That's why I was
how
like,
it is a lot of times. Like me, I'm actually good around people.
Yeah.
When those anxieties aren't there, I'm very social and very like articulate and stuff, you know?
Yeah. So on to like my challenge is that I have had intense feelings of guilt, and there was also the feeling of urgency, like I need to be serving medicine like now. Like I just felt like, oh, this has to happen now, instead of saying, no, it's okay. You have still a lot to learn, and that's okay. Enjoy the process of learning about serving, and then you can, have your time. But I felt so stressed about it because it was felt very urgent, and I also felt really guilty because it's a big sacrifice to serve medicine, and there's a lot of things that I have to do that don't feel hard to have to do them, but it's the sacrifice of like being away from you guys and the kids, and not being there for them the way that my mind tells me I need to be, that conflicts with where, what I believe. Yeah. So does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like she had guilt, she had doubt,
fear also.
She had fear, she had impatience, all these energies, all these conditioned emotional reactions to what is life, they became magnified for you when you felt really guilty, really afraid, really impatient, to the point where it's like, just like when life pushes you out of situations that no longer resonate with you, your emotions will amplify until you say, I don't want to feel this way.
Right.
And then you allow them to kind of release, and you get the it's a blessing, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost look at sometimes your life purpose almost like a trick from your higher self, like a carrot on a stick that you're compelled to follow so that you transform yourself. Because as you go forward on your path, you release the guilt, the emotions, the non-resonating life situations. You just shed all of this weight, and that in itself is a payoff, is a blessing, it's a reward.
It's super, super healing.
Yeah, healing.
To release those dark emotions that are weighing on you. It's powerful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Number 5, seeds of ideas about who you want to become, where you want to go, that excite you, but also scare you. Right? Yeah, a little over the top, Vic. Yeah, inspired thinking that both excites you and scares you. Like for me, it's like the retreats. That's so exciting. How cool would it be to like go to Hawaii, have 20 of like my fans, people like you there to hang out with, that I could really work with in a more intimate way, and really help transform and coach and help see them get onto their path, and how fun it would be to be in the sun and swimming or whatever we decide to do. That's so exciting, and yet, what if I'm not social enough? What if people don't sign up? Fear. What if it doesn't work? What if this thing I want so bad doesn't play out the way I hope? So that's one of the signs. But again, life and the universe is going to kind of hook you up with all the healing you need, all the different books you maybe need to read, the messages you need to hear, the people you need to meet. When you follow this path, in spite of those fears, you are supported and you heal along the way. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I experience a lot of fear about, one of the things that I need to do is do diets to diet plants, so I can learn the different plants and be able to hold the space of a ceremony. And I'm gonna have to be doing that in the jungle, and that's a little bit, I'm like, love the jungle, but going and actually being in the jungle and having the energy of that is a little bit scary,
Right. Why don't you elaborate a little bit about what that is? Some people might not even know. Yeah, like what does that entail that scares you about it?
Well, mostly, so a dieta is where you choose a plant and you go and if you're doing a dieta in the jungle, right, you can do social diets, but you can also do isolation diets. So basically you have a very restricted diet of like no salt, sugar, fat. Usually, a lot of times you eat just once a day, a very bland food, and you connect with a plant, whatever that plant may be. It could be sage or thyme. If you're doing a social diet at home, you can use like whatever plant resonates with you. Anyway, but you pick a plant and you go in complete isolation and you just connect with that plant. And
okay,
does
yeah,
that make sense?
That what I was looking for is like the fact that you'd have to go into the jungle and you'd be in isolation,
Right, I'd be alone,
diet.
well, not completely alone, because obviously people would come check on me, but I'd be like alone in a hut most of the day, or tambo, most of the day, except for a very short time where someone would bring me food, and then go maybe do like ayahuasca ceremonies in the evening. But that's being alone in the jungle is a little bit
scary, right?
Scary, yeah.
And yet you're always reading about dietas. You're like intrigued by that idea.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of looking for.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good. No, it's good. That's why a lot of people probably don't know what a dieta is. That's why I said
Yeah, I know. I realized that when I said that. I was like,
that's okay. Okay, the last one is, ready? The timing for you to finally pursue your purpose is horrible, right? The timing could not be worse. Like for me, I had just had a third child, and on what planet would it make sense to close down my only sources of income to follow some faint idea into the deep unknown? The timing was horrible, right?
Yeah.
Was the timing horrible for you, or maybe kind of crappy?
Yeah. I mean, because Sebastian's still 3, so he
good point.
He just turned 3. So when this happened, he was like newly 2. So it didn't make logical sense to me to like be leaving him and going to Peru and going to the jungle and leaving the kids, with you and for an extended amount of time, because Sebastian especially still really, really relied on me a lot.
So it's like becoming a shaman and all the training while you have young kids. That's not ideal. Right?
Yes, but it's possible. And once I accepted that it's not an overnight process, then that sort of dissipated.
Yeah, and here's the secret, folks. Here's why I made a point to have this sort of gloomy sign, because it's not gloomy at all. The timing's actually perfect. The challenges I was forced to overcome that I was just sharing about were exactly what I needed to do what I felt inspired to do, which is my whole life, what you see now. All the timing is so spot on and perfect to give you exactly the growth experiences that you need to blossom into the person you sense you're going to ultimately become. But on paper, a lot of times it doesn't look smart. But as most of us know, there's a million reasons to not do something. There's a million reasons to put off something. Yeah. But if you feel that spark, that fire, that flame, that passion, that desire, that, you know what I'm talking about, it's hard to even describe it and minimize the word, that feeling, then hopefully this has compelled you to follow it. Because as you can see, are all these concerns, all these situations that some are unpleasant, more unpleasant than others, have served us, have actually, it's all been support. It's all been exactly what we need to manifest our dreams, to manifest the expression of our life purpose. And I can look back in retrospect and see it was just all perfect.
It always is.
It always is, yeah. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I wish you guys well on this journey. I know it's not easy, but hopefully we've been able to help sort of nudge you along in the right direction, the direction that's going to really serve you and the whole as well. And we wish you guys nothing but the best. Have an amazing day. Thank you for watching and listening. Namaste.
Namaste.